All right, welcome back to History and Coffee. And today I'm going to be talking about the history of the Bowie knife, essentially the world's first concealed carry sword. And I'll get into why that is in a minute. But first, if you like my videos and crap, go ahead and like them or share them or subscribe or whatever. And I'll make a deal with you. If I reach 200 subscribers, I'll go and buy a tripod. And, no more edge of the table vision here. So, so most people know, the story of Jim Bowie, but what most people don't know is that there's really very little actual historical evidence. It's mostly like a folk tale. Bowie was the type of guy that didn't really keep. He wasn't a big letter writer like some of these other people. That's one of the ways that I research people is by reading their letters. Like Wild Bill Hickok is a good example of that. He wrote tons of letters, and you can really sort of get an idea for what a person was like by reading those. And then, of course, there's newspaper articles, and some of these people kept journals. Bowie did keep a journal sort of sporadically. There was apparently some of the pages of this were discovered next to his body in the Alamo, but I don't know if that's 100% true or not, or I haven't really been able to find the contents of this, so it's difficult to get a feel for who the man was who designed and used this knife. We do have accounts from relatives and family members and things like that from later on that after the folk hero status really cemented for Bowie, his family, grandkids and things like that. And so, basically everything that I'm going to say here is our best idea of what happened. It's really, I can't say for sure what's what, and, really about anything. In fact, if we're speaking in just terms of historical records, there's only actual irrefutable evidence that he only killed one man in a knife fight. As far as all that other, I mean, it could have happened. It probably did, but there's not direct court evidence. So, when you talk about the sandbar duel, so we know that happened. As far as the reprisal stuff after that, and some of the stuff that happened later, we don't know for sure if that is truly what happened. So, all right, enough. Let me get into it here. So, in the Jim Bowie was born in Kentucky, and around about the 1820s, he got together with his brother Reason. It's spelled like resin, but it's pronounced reason. Trust me. Anyway, and they got together and they decided they wanted to make a knife. And this is not that knife. This is sort of the later evolution of it. The original Bowie knife, according to family members of Jim Bowie, relatives, him and Reason got together. They took an old file and hammered it out into a knife that was allegedly based on the Spanish hunting knives that were floating around the American Southwest at the time, but with a little bit of a twist. It was probably more dagger-like than this. Again, allegedly, according to relatives, Bowie wanted essentially a concealed carry sword. Firearms technology of the day was such that you basically had a one-shot flintlock iron tube, and then after that, you you were screwed unless you had some kind of a sword or something like that. And Bowie was sort of I don't know if you could call him a businessman, maybe more of an organized criminal, and sort of a 19th century wise guy type. He sort of dabbled in both legal and illegal, and he was the type of guy that needed personal protection, a defensive weapon, and that one shot from a pistol was not going to do it. And it was such that he couldn't go walking around with a sword on his hip. So they got together and they came up with this knife. And later in the 1820s, that knife was supposedly used in the infamous sandbar duel across from Natchez, Mississippi, where, again, allegedly Bowie, apparently it was a duel between two other gentlemen, and it got out of hand and basically turned into a huge brawl on the sandbar in the Mississippi River. And Bowie jumped in and, got shot and stabbed and managed to, I believe it was kill 3 men and essentially end the whole ruckus. And after that, the Bowie knife sort of, that was the thing that sort of cemented the Bowie knife as a, an American, I guess, folk weapon, if you will. And again, that was not this knife. This knife, or this style of knife, comes about after that, when Bowie got together with a blacksmith by the name of James Black, which is conveniently named blacksmith for memory's sake, and designed, had him make him what's more like this knife here. We don't know exactly what that looked like. There's a lot of variations. We don't know what the exact Jim Bowie's personal knife was, but it was 12-inch blade, bone or stag handle, clip point, and a brass crossguard. So this is about as close as, Anyway, and that knife was supposedly the one that was used in the retaliation attack for the sandbar duel killings. Legend has it that Bowie was basically ambushed by 3 men who were hired by one of the survivors of that fight to kill him. And apparently, again, after having been shot and stabbed, he set about dispatching all 3 of these men with his knife. Not necessarily proven, but having seen some of the things we do know about Jim Bowie, I guarantee he probably did kill a good amount of people. He seems like I guess the best way to describe Jim was he was born at the right period in time to be a folk hero instead of somebody who probably would have spent the majority of their life in prison. And after that second fight is really when the Bowie knife became the thing that everybody had to have. The James Black actually got rich off of producing copies of this knife, and they even made it all the way to the UK. The Sheffield Knife Company began mass producing Bowie knives and exporting them all over the world. It was a hot item. The American frontier was pretty popular in I guess European pop culture of the day, and Europeans would be running around with raccoon skin hats and Bowie knives and things like that. It was just sort of the cool thing to do. Now, of course, the Sheffield knives, they would have looked a little bit different from this. And they, in America, they weren't too popular because they weren't as well made as the American ones. You really, if you wanted to be cool in 19th century America, you wanted a James Black made a Bowie knife. So this continued to evolve. There's so many different variations of it, it's impossible to really cover them all. And of course, Bowie did a couple of notable things with his knife in his belt. He led an expedition to look for a lost Spanish gold mine and was ambushed by Native Americans, and supposedly once again fought them all off, single-handedly with his knife. He took place in the Long Expedition, which was an attempt to liberate Texas from Mexico. And then, of course, he later was killed in the Alamo. And that's another thing that's sort of up for interpretation. There are some, of course, the legend is that he was sick in his bed and he got up and still fought to the last breath. And then there's some people that say he was probably completely out of it and just got killed. Having looked into Bowie's life somewhat, I'm pretty sure that he probably went out fighting. This was definitely I guess the word would be chip on his shoulder, some sort of a restless character in history. But it's difficult to to judge people's intentions and moral standing based off a couple of journal entries and some letters and a bunch of sensationalized news articles. So who knows? Regardless of that, this knife is absolutely cemented in American history, and you got to have one. They're a lot of fun, and Jim Bowie will live on, be it in folklore or in fact, and his knife is still produced today. So thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.